Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome everyone to Tiger Claw Radio. This is Critical Failure. This week, Chiptunes. I like the electronic music. The lo-fi, unfiltered square waves. We're going to listen to some chiptunes. Last week we went back to archive.org, last couple of weeks, and we've been listening to old chiptunes from like 10 plus years ago or something, and I think we're going to do that again this week. On top of that, we got a couple of vancasts, some video games to discuss, as they say. But for now, let's try some chiptunes. Stick with us. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. That's Droid On, who made that song. And the name of the track is 2001. And I gotta say, this is coming after like a long morning of listening to a lot of like really abstract chiptunes. This one is a real breath of fresh air. I get real like Metal Gear vibes, like early Metal Gear vibes, almost like a Snake's Revenge kind of deal coming from there, but a little harder. So good times. Really dug that one. That is from the Droid On album, which you can get from archive.org for free. Just go download yourself a copy. Check out the notes for the link so you can go grab it. Again, it's very old. Let me see if I can find a date on here. 2015? I mean, that's old, but that's not as old as we have been. Yeah, uploaded by Chip and Z on September 22nd, 2015. Yeah, it's still pretty old. That's 6 years ago. Wow, 2015 was 6 years ago. That's a bit of reality I didn't need. Alright, so here's something that I wanted to start doing on TCR. And I've heard other people do this before too. Every month, I want to pick out a game and put some time into it and talk about it here on the air. And we can kind of do like a game of the month sort of deal. The idea being something we can all play together and sort of compare notes. So I wanted to do, for the duration of May, because we're a couple of weeks in, I wanted to do a nice, easily accessible game that I know anybody who wants to play can. So we're going to play Metroid. I think Metroid is a perfect pick, the original Metroid for NES, because I haven't played Metroid much. I never got hooked on the Metroid series. I know about its place in history, and I tried it a little bit many years ago. Never got hooked. Want to give it an honest try. So, whatever you're doing, if you've got an emulation set up, add Metroid to it. If you've got an old copy of Metroid hanging around, dust it off. Let's play. And we're going to talk about it starting next week. Metroid's the game, so dig it out and give it a shot. I want to do one more off of this Droid On album because the final track is really short, and then we'll switch to the Vancast. You're listening to TCR. Thanks for joining us. That's Foster's Meeting from Droid On. What's the name of that album? Foster's Castle Rock, and then it runs off the page. Yeah, Foster's Castle Rock Fortress. Good times. Alright, boys and girls, let's go to the van. We are in the van again. It's Friday night. It is 9:16 p.m. It rained most of the day today. So it has since stopped, but we have a nice chill in the air, and we're looking at wet roads, 48 degrees, feels nice. This is the one time of the week I go out, I treat myself to a little something, do the drive-through, get a little peace and quiet, and hang out. Basically, what I'm looking forward to is I'm going to get myself a McFlurry, I'm going to sit in a parking space in the McDonald's parking lot, and I'm going to play with my Ambernic handheld for about 10 minutes before I go home. And then when I get home, I'm going to switch over to the Pow Kitty, which is now charging. because both of these machines do entirely different things right now. I've been making it my mission to learn the tools of the trade when it comes to the chiptunes, like the classic tools, LSDJ and Nano Loop. Those are the two big players that you could like get real cartridges for and play on like real systems and design chiptunes that way. I tried doing LSDJ like 10 years ago or more, and I just couldn't do it. So I'm trying again, and it hasn't been going well. I'm not gonna lie. It's confusing, it's difficult to use, and it's kind of scary because I'll make a little primitive sound and it'll start looping and playing over and over again, and I won't be able to make it stop. And eventually I just can't anymore, and then I move on from it. But it's been fun. It's been fun because I like the chiptunes, and I know that it's been a celebrated program. I'm not really expecting to make quality chiptunes with LSDJ. I just, I want to know how it works. I want to be able to, I want to beat the game. I want to beat LSDJ. Which I know you can't do on an emulator, because here's the thing. It's a sequencer and you can make music with it, right? But classically, what people used to do 10 years ago is they'd get these flash cards, when you could get a flash card for the Game Boy for $40, and they'd put LSDJ on them, and then they'd get two separate Game Boys, and they'd link them together with a link cable. Do you remember the Game Boy link cable, how they used to do that? And because they would link with a link cable, both Game Boys would then run their sequences synced up with each other. And basically, the idea was, instead of being limited to 4 channels, right? You got your 2 pulse channels, 1 wave channel, and 1 noise channel, right? You'd get twice that, because you'd have 2 machines running their sound chips in tandem with each other. You can't do that on an emulator, not until they make one of these types of emulation devices that actually has a link cable, which would be amazing. But that's a bit of a tangent. This past week in video games for me has not really been primarily focused on chiptunes. That's kind of just been like a this evening sort of thing. Oh man, what have I been doing this past week? Well, Morrowind for one thing. Oh, we get a line at Crackdonald's. Oh, that's okay. That's okay, because I'm not doing the drive-thru. The drive-thru is for dum-dums. I'm doing the curbside pickup, because they actually have to walk out to my car, and boy do they hate me, man. I'll go to the curbside pickup when there's nobody around, and I'll order an ice cream, and it just occurred to me the last time I did this that they gotta walk out to the car, and they're like, you couldn't have went through the drive-thru, man. Oh gosh, now it makes sense because there's a line. Excuse me, I'm going to put this on pause, and I'm going to make my order, and we'll see what's up. All right, the order is in, and I'm just watching the people in the lines. Oh, I like this so much better. Oh my gosh, I can play. Oh, it feels good. You know what's funny? Here I am. I'm patronizing like one of the most like huge evil corporations in America. I don't know if they're evil, but they're huge. I don't know. Corporations this big. There's no way they get this big by being humanitarians. And I'm patronizing this company, which I know is selling me poison. And I'm sitting here feeling like I beat the system just because somebody's going to bring it out to me, as opposed to waiting in line like the rest of these people. Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst. I envy them that they were able to put it together where I have fooled myself into thinking that way. I wish I could do that. I wish I could pull off that sort of wizardry, those brain tricks, Jedi mind trick people into thinking that. As for this past week in gaming, I've been in a little tiny bit of a beat 'em up kick lately. Not usually my style of game, which is weird because one of my favorites of all time is River City Ransom, which is, a classic beat 'em up. But apart from River City Ransom, not too many that have stuck with me over the years, but I have a few on Steam, like the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle, which I was into like last year, year before, whenever it was. But I started replaying a game called Big Action Mega Fight. Big Action Mega Fight is like I want to say it's a mobile game. It plays kind of like a mobile game. And it originally debuted, at least the first time I came across it was on the Ouya. So definitely an Android native game. And it is for sale on Steam. I'm pretty sure you can beat the whole game in like 3 hours, but I have been playing it and having a good time. Excuse me. I think like a Double Dragon type game, but they added in a coin mechanism. Oops, there's the bell. Sweet. They added in a coin mechanism where you beat people up and take their cash, and the levels are super duper short. I mean, super short. Like you can beat an entire level in like, I don't know, a minute or something. So yeah, it's not perfect, but great budget game, and I think that's what I like. I don't know what it is that's attracting me to beat 'em ups right now. And I also got that Stay Cool Kobayashi game I talked about last week. Well, I sat down with that and played it some, and you know what? I didn't think it was that bad. It was incredibly vanilla, especially when compared to the rest of the River City Ransom type games, but I enjoyed it. The problem with that game, and the reason why I can't recommend it, is because the map is a little disjointed. Like you don't always know where you're going, and the idea is set up that in order to beat all the bosses, you have to beat like 30 gang members of each gang, but there's only like 5 per screen. So you're basically just wandering aimlessly trying to beat people down until eventually the boss will seemingly at a random interval show up. Not a great game, but the pixel art is really good. Oh, hang on. I got you. I'm doing good. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. Hey! Yeah! Ringy dingy. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is about Big Action Mega Fight that's drawing me to it. I've got a good number of beat 'em ups, and I don't know. I think it's weird because if Stay Cool Kobayashi, right, a River City Ransom story as it's called, if that game, if those graphics were wrapped around Big Action Mega Fight, then you'd have an amazing game. That'd be amazing. But instead of that, I'm left with 2 C+ experiences, which are doing the job, because I'm kind of tired of playing the original Double Dragon trilogy, the .emu version of the original Double Dragon trilogy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with those games, but they have been my go-to beat 'em up for a little bit too long. Yeah, and that's been pretty much it. So this is a couple of games that I can hang my hat on as really bad games that I'm still having fun with anyway, despite that. And that said, I'm going to eat this ice cream and free French fries I got from being a drug-addicted user of the McDonald's app. I'll see you guys back in the studio. Back again in the studio. I never did figure out 100% how to do LSDJ very well. The last real shot I made at LSDJ was back in college. So this would have been like 10 years ago. I remember sitting on on a bench on campus. It was sunny out. I had this was on a flash card on an actual Game Boy. And at the time, the flash card that I was using only worked on certain machines. So I had a Game Boy Pocket at that time, and the Game Boy Pocket was underpowered. It didn't have enough voltage to run the flash card. So if you try to fire it up, it would just immediately shut down. It's pretty hilarious. So I'm pretty sure this was on like a classic DMG brick Game Boy. And I remember toying with the interface, and I came up with one short tune. It was a short loop. I don't have it handy, but I did actually record it and submit it to 8-Bit Collective in a really quick, forgettable sort of submission. The kind of thing that hits the front page, drops down to the bottom, never to be seen again. I seem to remember calling it something silly like Mega Mans and Metroids, banking on the idea that people click on the recognizable names. But that was the only thing I ever did with it. It's not like that's the only actual tune or actual submission that I did with LSDJ. That was the only real shot I took. Because with Famitracker, I felt like I was able to think up ideas and get them out and sort of like make ideas, make music in something pretty close to real time. I couldn't do that with LSDJ. I know some people can, but there was too much energy spent wrestling with the interface that I couldn't stick with it. So hoping to get over that now. All right, boys and girls. Quick thanks to the sponsors. This is a Patreon sponsored program. Patreon sponsors are getting early access to the show. They get it on Wednesday. Everybody else gets it on Monday. And they also get access to Monday Night Morrowind. And I have a few more tricks up my sleeve for the future, so stick with us on that. I also like to read their names off in a Hall of Distinguished Gentlemen, sort of like an old tradition here on TCR. And they are Hemrock, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and Eric Controller. Thank you so much for keeping the lights on here at TCR. And if you want to support, head over to the Patreon page and hang out with us on Monday Night Morrowind. All right, I've got one more Vancast that I want to check out. Remember, once again, if you got a copy of Metroid, dust it off and give it a play. We're going to talk about that a little bit more next week. Head into the van one more time now. Well, if it isn't another Vancast, what's going on, everyone? It is 9:34 p.m. I'm on my way to Chipotle. Oh, yeah, I got to say, I'm really loving these late-night fast food runs. Oh, yeah, destroying my health one burrito at a time. I love it. Off we go. So, prior to leaving for delicious burrito madness, on a Tuesday, I was playing on the Android TV box, basically explaining the concept of emulators to my wife. Not much into video games, but she's always been, small handful of games. They are the chosen ones for years to come. Those are the ones she comes back to. And it just so happens that several of those games are on the Super Nintendo. So it's like, look, if those are going to be the games on the Super Nintendo, they're the most accessible games of all games, really. What at this point cannot run an emulator of some sort? So I explained the concept of emulation. I got up Tetris Attack, and I was showing it to her, and then explaining the concept of save stage, which was a good time. It was a good time. The thing is, if you've ever played Tetris Attack on an emulator, there's a handful of games that just can't emulate properly for whatever reason, and Tetris Attack is one of them. If you mute it, it plays just fine, but the sound will never be right. It goes off key. It's not a great representation of what emulators are. So I had that experience this evening, and I had to kind of explain, no, emulators are better than that. This is one of the black sheep games that just doesn't run great. So we went from there to SimCity, which is another one of her favorites. And we talked about just how hard Electronic Arts has been dropping the ball with the SimCity franchise over the past 10 years or so. Because the last really good SimCity game was SimCity 4. And when did that come out? More than 10 years ago. I don't I know that good old Carl from Scenic 7 PR sent me a copy of SimCity 4 in CD-ROM format like 10 years ago, and it was already an old game by then. All right, I'm at Chipotle. Let me run in and get my burritos here. There we go. We have acquired burritos. Burritos acquired. You have ascended to burrito level 2. All right, give me a second here. Let me see if I can back out of this parking spot without hitting anybody. All right. I think we did it. And off we go. So that was that was something that just kind of happened in the last hour. Prior to that, I bought some more games off of the Google Play Store, which I hadn't done in a while. It'd been a couple weeks. I've been using the handhelds more over the past week or two, so I'd kind of taken a break from the Google Play Store. Played more Justice Chronicles, which has kept me entertained. Good, good for the money. What else? What was the game that was on sale? Here's the trick. I started going to Android Police, the website, because on Mondays they put out a report of things that are on sale temporarily, and if it's not on that list, chances are it's one of those things like Justice Chronicles, where the regular price is $8 or something, and then they sell it on sale for $4, but it's always on sale. That's just the price it always is. So one of the games that was actually on sale this past week was one of the Dungeons and Dragons games they also sell on GOG, and I can't remember which one. I want to say Planescape Torment, but I'd have to double check that. I think those rotate, because the last couple times I went on there, it was like Baldur's Gate or something like that, which is pretty cool. So actual sales in the Android world, which is kind of nice. It is kind of a disappointment that the Google Play Store is just so poorly laid out that I have to go to an external source just to find like what's really on sale. But hey, it is what it is. I bought like a bunch of games that didn't end up working very well. I don't have a list in front of me, but basically it was like 4 or 5 games, and the vast majority of them either would crash. I had like 2 that crashed during opening, and the rest like were not functioning with a gamepad, which is a deal breaker if I'm trying to use like an Android TV box. I got R-Type 2, which works just great, and that's awesome. .emu put out a bunch of like old games, probably like 5 or 6 years ago or something like that, and supposedly they have errors with the newest versions of Android. Thankfully, that the TV box I use is underpowered, so all the .emu games seem to work just fine. Got R-Type right out of the gate when I first started getting games for it, so I picked up R-Type 2 today, which was awesome. I got a game called Cider Arcade, which was a side-scrolling space shmup that came out, gosh, it's hard to believe it was this long ago. It's like 2013. This came out 2012. Long time. Because I remember when that one first came out, I picked it up on Steam, like when it was a brand new game. And at the time, I was jazzed about it. I was like, oh yeah, this is dope. This is a game that's worth your time. Hang on a second. I gotta stop and get gas. It looks like there's a line. That sucks, but it is what it is. Yar, matey. Yar, matey. Yeah, so Cider Arcade booted up just fine, but it wasn't controller compatible. So I think the issue there was just that it was released at a time when that was not the norm, which was kind of a bummer, because that was a pretty good game. And being as old as it is, at regular price, like $1.25. Come on, come on, come on. All right. And let's get some gas. Yeah. Back to the studio. Back again in the studio. Crackle, crackle. This is that time of the year, that time of the week. 31 minutes in. We turn our attention to the fail bag. Let's bring this up just a wee bit. There we go. It's just me here. It's just you here. I'll tell you what. Let's listen to some comments and see what's going on in the world. If you want to interact with the show, head over to YouTube and leave a comment. If you know me personally, by all means, shoot me an email. Just be clear about what I can and can't read. It's probably the more efficient way, since that way you can bypass YouTube's nonsense. We got one from Swingle for just that reason. He wrote in saying, this might be a warning sign by YouTube, but my comments aren't getting to you through the comment section. From now on, I'll email you directly so I don't have to play this game of sounding like a fruitcake in order to get permission. Here's my mini backlog. Sweet. From 383 at 12 minutes in. This is 2 episodes ago. Yes, a filthy casual. I agree that the low-grade 2D games are showing more heart these days. I've been playing SNK All-Stars, and it's disgusting that game isn't a standalone title. I would legit pay $10 to $20 for an offline version, but I'll enjoy it while I can. They made King of Fighters into a turn-based RPG without the selling point of having team members join you for combos. Sadly, it has all of the bad free-to-play garbage. Unfortunate. Kemco also has a bunch of their older titles for free in case you want to be cheap for a bit. Has the usual ads, but can be played offline without ads. The ads are just stock ads telling you about their other games, so I don't feel bad about sidestepping the ads in that case. I recommend sticking with Justice Chronicles so you can see it through. I don't want you to be distracted by too many games. I got Neo on Steam. Is it Neo or Nio? Has an awkward button layout, and they only show controller prompts, but it feels like what Dark Souls Bloodborne should have been. I went with Tonfas as my weapon of choice, and the kill animations are brutal. Bought it for $12, and as a port, it isn't great, but as a PS4, PS5 exclusive on consoles, so this would be the best way to get it. Okay, a couple of things. What are you playing SNK All-Stars on? Are you playing it on the Android box? Because I'm pretty sure I tried that one on my Android box and couldn't get it running. I ask this because I happen to know where we have the same model Android box, with the exception of the internal memory space. Yeah, SNK fighting games are dope. I would play that for sure. And I agree. I don't think it's 100% because of, 3D animation just doesn't have the soul 2D does. Although I do feel that way personally. I don't think that's the reason. Games, so less people are involved with the creative process. That's at least the fan theory that I'm going with right now. You get the second you get a CEO trying to please a board of investors, then all of those individuals are going to have an effect on what the actual game looks like, and usually not for the better. Whereas if you have a small company that's putting out 2D games, they have their vision, and provided that they have the talent base, they can take that vision and put it almost directly into the game, which is very different from the modern development cycle. Still playing Justice Chronicles. Played it yesterday, having a good time with it. Surprised how long that's been entertaining me, because I'm pushing. I can't remember how long I played Final Fantasy 3 for on the Ouya, when I gave Final Fantasy 3 a good shot. Didn't finish it, but I played it a good bit. I'm nearing having played Justice Chronicles more. I want to say it was 13 hours I played Final Fantasy 3. Haven't played it that long, but almost. Yeah, I'm definitely going to play this all the way through before I get any other RPGs for the Android box, or really for anything else for that matter. Even on my handhelds, I have not been playing any other RPGs because I don't want to get distracted. It's either Justice Chronicles or a quick pick up and play high score based game or an action game or something. Yeah. Okay, so there was another one from 384, which was last week. I think I read this one, but we're going to try it again. In regards to the malicious behavior by Sony with their PS3, PS4, judging by how the console has to be reactivated, it means the system was designed to be a toaster and the CMOS no longer held a charge. An accident in terrible design are the Xbox systems as a whole, as well as the early PS3s overheating when playing certain games for long periods. Basically, it needs to be a bad idea in hindsight to be an accident. This idea required foresight to enact. Okay, so not just bad design. This is malicious design. To be fair, though, all consoles are designed to fail. But as you said, it depends on the intent behind the failure. Nintendo is infamous for using copper pins with their cartridges. From NES to Game Boy Advance, all those oxidize over time and will be unable to work after 30 to 50 years. But will be a hassle around 20 years for the majority of the titles. Even then, the cartridges are like vinyl and cassette tapes, where the more you use the cartridge, the faster the pins wear out, and the pins are caked into the PCB, so you can't replace them, making it a product that was designed to go bad. Emphasize the design part so they know I'm joking. The big problem with all this stuff is the platform was designed to be a temporary thing. The console would require every game to be installed through a non-ECC RAM chip to last for any significant time. But even those go bad after 100 years. So the question is, how long do you want to rent a game versus if you're renting it? I generally agree that a console needs to last for 30 years to be tolerable. A tolerable compromise against entropy. Okay, you raised some good points here. Nothing is forever. It really isn't. But I don't know. How long should a console last? That's a really good question. You're making hardware. You're gonna sell a piece of machinery that plays entertainment software. How long should it last? I don't know, but I submit to you this. If the company that's supporting it goes under, you should still be able to play what you have. It's one thing like with the case of the Wii, where the store shut down and you can't buy games for it anymore. And if you bought games that are in the store, now you can't download them anymore. That sucks. But that is an unfortunate reality of how it goes. But you can still fire that thing up and play it. The system itself did not break with the shutdown of their services. And now, I mean, you can get an SD card or whatnot, and that's beside the point. But I just think, I think what's going on with, and I'm right there with you. You could argue all day about old hardware going bad, but I don't know, man. the pins weren't on an NES game. Were put there because that was just what they. Okay, think of it like this, Alex. Do you remember? You know the Famicom disk system, right? Buying a Famicom disk system now, I looked into it a little bit. Around the time that Sendu sold me his Master System, I was playing a lot of Famicom games because I got a Famiclone from Hemrock. And I was looking into getting like a legit Famicom. And because of the showpiece, not because of the functionality, but because of the showpiece, I wanted to get an actual like Model 1 Famicom and then a disk system, that the kind that where the Famicom sits on top of the disk system, not the one where they're packed up together. And the more I looked into it, the more I found out that the disk system was hilariously unreliable. Not to mention the discs are mad expensive. So, yes, the pins on the games do wear out over time because they oxidize or whatever, but my hat is off to them because they opted to use expensive cartridges that I guarantee you it was more expensive to build a cartridge than it was to build a disc for the disk system. So, that was... They were thinking about, okay, what's going to last? At least a little bit, in my opinion. And that mentality has changed. And I think that right there is the core of my gripe with modern video games. Like my Android box here, Google Play could go down. I don't know. The Android platform isn't, apart from Google, it isn't centralized. Like, I can get APKs from anywhere and play it on there. I like that idea. I would like to see video games push more into a decentralized environment. It's one of the reasons I'm really enjoying the OpenDingux-based handhelds, because I can do anything with them. As a matter of fact, I went to the Anbernic website, and I saw they had an actual console, not a handheld, but a console, and I got really excited because I was like, sweet, OpenDingux on like a console, and I could just play that. But then I looked at it, and it was like a product that predates their awesome handhelds, and it wasn't what I thought it was. I don't know. I just think exclusives and major companies building their walled gardens, it's a breeding ground for bad things. But I'm preaching to the choir and telling you things you already know. And of all people, you particularly are not a big fan of that. So let's move on. That's the end of your backlog. Swingle, thanks very much for sending that in. What's funny is, especially this second comment, this sounds familiar. I may have read this on the air. I may not have. So, it is what it is. No, that's last week. The first one, I guess, would be one. Okay. So the next one was from Hemrock, who also contacted me via the inbox. Second. Failbag, in my opinionation. Good old Hemrock. Good to hear from you, brother. Thanks for checking in. Hey, Paisan, I hope this email finds you nice and comfy in the Tiger Claw Media Research Center. It sure does. As usual, thank you for the for another rendition of TCR, and a big thank you for bringing back Monday Night Morrowind. I forgot how good those visual mods look on a PC compared to my current Xbox Morrowind game. Quick tip, try to have your fatigue meter, the bottom green one, full or close to it before a major battle. The lower the meter, the less likely you are to strike your opponent in combat. Sometimes it can be the difference between life and death. Just standing still for a little while will restore your fatigue, or you can use a potion. Eventually, having an enchanted item that consistently restores fatigue will come in handy. Good to know. Recently you spoke about the Android versions of Phantasy Star. It's cool that they have a cloud save feature. However, if you own these titles on Steam, you can get the ROM from Steam, the Steam game folder, onto your computer and use that for your devices, although you'd lose the cloud save feature. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I'm chasing the cloud save feature because I'm pretty sure I have Phantasy Star 2 and 3 around here legit. So I have no qualms about running the ROMs. The only one is I have Phantasy Star 4, but it's like it's one of those games that I got off of AliExpress for like $6, and it doesn't save. So that one's a little shady. But 2 and 3, I've got no problems using the ROM. It's just I really like the idea of cloud save. Because this game, Justice Chronicles, that I've been playing, there have been a few instances where I have been away from my Android TV box and kind of wanted to play it, or felt like playing an RPG, and just held off because I didn't want to get involved in something else, and I had to do something else. If I had the Phantasy Star rig, then that wouldn't be such a problem. I don't know. But then I would lose save scumming, I guess. So, yeah. I am going to definitely check out the ROMs that you can get from the Steam folder of the Sega collection, because I have not done that yet. You mentioned that, and those are ROMs that I own legit, actually exchanged currency for. So I can put those on a POW Kitty, 100% ethically and legally. How's that Chemco RPG treating you? Chemco RPGs have fascinated me for a while. I think I picked up at least one on the Switch when it was on sale. I think it was As Divine Hearts, but I've yet to play it. I did a bit of searching, and there are a few that rank highly. Let me see if any of these are on your radar. RPG Meridian Tavern. It sounds like Recettear and Item Shop's tale for Android. Fern's Gate supposedly has a good story, and As Divine Hearts, interesting gameplay mechanics. To answer your question, Hemrock, I've not heard of any of those other three. Once I got into Justice Chronicles, I shut down the looking for new RPGs because I saw how deep their catalog goes, and I was afraid of becoming like, how do I explain this? When it's like, okay, I gotta catch them all. I'm into RPGs. Let's just buy RPGs now. and then I spend more time collecting RPGs and looking at the market than I do actually playing the games. So, did not have these on my radar, but let's pop open your Google Play links. Each one of these is a Google Play link. That's so nice. And take a look here. Having taken a quick look at these links, the one that appeals to me the most is RPG Meridian Tavern Story. Yeah, well, first of all, the one that I'm playing, Justice Chronicles, is entirely rendered in 2D. There's no 3D at all. And each one of these, the price bracket's a little higher. These are $8, but I can see some 3D rendered environments, especially if you look at the screenshots for As Divine Hearts. Look at the combat. The combat is much more like a later Final Fantasy game than the one I'm playing. Justice Chronicles plays more like the combat. I would equate more to like Lufia, or like what's another game that's very similar? Final Fantasy Legends 3 on the Game Boy, or maybe Dragon Quest 3 or something like that, where the monster is front and center, and the characters are on the lower half of the screen fighting upwards. Yeah, these all look really good. I will wishlist these. As far as the game that you purchased and never played, the story of backlogs, am I right? I actually have had Reciteer and Item Shop's Tale. I've had that in my Steam library for goodness knows how long. Since I've been on Steam, so at least 10 years, and I have never played it. And people say it's awesome. It's like a guaranteed good game, but I've never played it. All right, let's get back to the email. I'm looking forward to your chiptune compilation. Do you have an ETA on it? Any artist names we may recognize? No artist names you would recognize, I think, at this point, because one of the big things I'm doing is reaching out to newcomers. ETA is end of May, so a couple weeks. I could drop it like right now, but I'm going to give it a couple more weeks to see if anybody else is going to jump on board. The track listing isn't going to be very long. We're looking at like 8 or 9 tracks right now, just because it's the first one of these I've done, and the 8-bit community, the chiptune community, turned out to be a little bit tougher to crack than like the acid music community. Acid folks were like way like open and awesome. Hence the 2-hour compilation that came out a couple months back. But let's get back to the email. He says, speaking of chiptunes, I'm still making my way through the 8-Bit Collective. I haven't given up. I'm about halfway through the mega list posted on archive.org. Will Green Leo ever release an LSDJ only album in the future? I doubt it. I sincerely doubt it. I would have to get to a point where I can use the interface without thinking about it in order to do that. I'm still messing with it, though. It's much more likely that I'll release an album of like different platforms that I'm playing with, and then LSDJ would be on there, like an LSDJ track or two. It has a great sound to it. It really does, but it's unintuitive. LSDJ is something you do, like you'd have to sit down and have a piece of paper so you could take notes along with it, which I think is pretty common. You discussed wrestling games recently and wanted to find one that wouldn't break the bank. The only wrestling game I got into back in the day was WCW NWO Revenge for the N64. Had a lot of fun with the multiplayer in this one. Rey Mysterio was the bomb. It actually isn't that expensive. I did a complete listing check on eBay, and you can grab a cart for $10 to $15, including shipping. All right. Good to know. Is that the one that has the Dig Dig Diggity Dog in the theme song? If that's the game I'm thinking of, NG used to play that quite a bit years ago, and I remember him playing it like walking around at his place and hearing the character select music and just laughing hysterically. Thank you for reading my email. I appreciate your Game Boy recommendations. I agree with you that Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins, is the best. I actually heard about Hyankyo, how do you say that, Alien before, and it's on my mental wish list of games if I can get it at the right price. I've heard about the title on Nintendo Retrocast years ago, and one of the hosts mentions how he liked it. I'm probably not pronouncing the game correctly, but I call it Hankyo Alien. Yeah, that's fun. That's pretty close to what I would say too. Back in 2017, they came out with a Famicom version that you can purchase here. I'll click that open. Have you ever asked your brother what happened to that fanny pack filled with games? Wow, that is a good question. I really don't know what happened. I don't know if he sold it or what, but he's not a video game guy. He's a car guy. He's a car guy and like an outdoorsy type person. So it's much more likely that he just ended up selling it off or something. I'm looking at this Famicom version of Hyankyo Alien, or however you say it. Oof, $46 for an NES copy. Yeesh. I mean, it's a good game, but that's a lot, bro. Good old Play Asia. All right. Oh wait, and it's on sale too. Where are we at? Yeah, okay, back to the email. I went to the local game store a few days ago, and by local I mean I drive 30 minutes away to a smaller town in order to get a better selection at lower prices. I picked up Lock and Chase and Revenge of the Gator for the original Game Boy. I would recommend them both to you. But I think you would especially dig Revenge of the Gator, as it's a polished pinball game. I like it more than the black box pinball for the NES, but it's not quite as much as Rollerball. Still has a better game than expected and a worthy addition to the collection, and not to mention it's affordable. Both good picks, I must say. The pinball game I haven't played, but I have played Lock and Chase on the Game Boy, and it's really good. I haven't played it since I picked up the No Piracy Challenge, because it was like one of those games that was in my ROM folder, but I don't actually own. But yeah, I enjoy it. Because I'm used to playing Lock and Chase on the Atari, because Lock and Chase was one of the M Network games, I think they were called, where it was like an Intellivision cartridge with an adapter on the end, sold as an Atari game. Yeah, Lock and Chase was one of those, and it was pretty primitive, but it was a game I enjoyed. So I was kind of startled. Again, playing an original Game Boy game and feeling like a huge step up in technology. It's good times. What do you think about retro game prices these days? Seems that things are really inflated. Yeah, it's bananas. It's bananas. For a lot of people, time to find another hobby. This is not sustainable. But one thing that is interesting about the whole prices of retro games that I think is kind of hard for us to accept, not only are the prices inflated, but the games are also aging, right? Think about like Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, which is considered the most common NES game ever. How old is a cartridge for Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt? They manufactured it in 1988. So 90, 2010, 33 years old? That's pretty old. That's pretty old. So I don't think they're going to go back down. Because you have you have games that are 30 plus years old. A lot of them are being hoarded in collections. A lot of them are being broken up for reproduction cartridges. That particular game, NES, Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, I've seen that game smashed so many times on YouTube. People would just at one point thought it was funny to just get cartridges and break them up. So rarity is happening. And I think it's tough for guys like us, people our age, to accept, but it is happening, and it's unfortunate. To the point where like I'm going elsewhere with my gaming now, because it's like all the reasons I got into retro games are gone. They're not cheap and obtainable anymore. Yeah, it just is what it is. It's like the worst part about the whole retro thing. I've got my games that mean a lot to me from when I was a kid. I've got them already. Yeah, so we're going to go outside of what's considered cool now, because that's what I've always done. Back to the email. He says, I don't have much retro news for you this week. However, in the ROM hacking world, a person, or more likely a group of people, by the name of 8-Bit Fan just dropped what appears to be a major update to one of the most popular ROM hacks of Final Fantasy II, or Japanese Final Fantasy IV, if you prefer. See the details here, and I'll pop that open in a new window. What's on the desk? Do you have that PS2 hooked up in your new office? What console gets played the most now? Better get going. I'm rooting for you, Hemrock. Hashtag MNMWR, Monday Night Morrowind returns. Hemrock, my man, good to hear from you, brother. The PS2 is not hooked up right now, and it kind of needs to be, because I don't have a reliable way to play DVDs in my office that's not a huge pain in the butt. I mean, I can put them in my computer because I maintain an optical disc in my tower, but yeah, I should hook up the PS2 again. That would be a good idea. As for consoles that get played the most, the Android TV box is the one that gets played the most by a long shot. But next to that would be the C64 Mini. That gets played occasionally. The answer you're looking for, the most console-y type console that gets played is probably the Super Nintendo, because I have the main TV in my office, and then there's a second smaller tube TV, and the Super Nintendo is the only game system that gets played on that small tube TV. It's like the whole reason we have that tube TV up here is so we can play Super Nintendo. My kids play Wii quite a bit because my Wii has a game called Pokemon Rumble, which I don't know if that was ever made available again, but that was a WiiWare game, a WiiWare exclusive. Actually, let's check that on the Googles right now. Pokemon Rumble. That was a great game. Top-down beat-em-up game starring Pokemon, except they were like toys or something weird. Pokemon Rumble Blast Standard Edition, Nintendo 3DS Digital. Yeah, maybe they did recreate it. It looks like they recreated it on 3DS. But yeah, we have it on the WiiWare, and my kids play that quite a bit. Did they really recreate Pokemon Rumble on 3DS? That would be awesome if they did. That might be like finally time to buy a 3DS if they did. It's taking too long for the screenshots to load though. Yeah, I don't know. I'll keep that tab open. Let's also check out this, romhacking.net. That is the link he sent in regards for the Final Fantasy 4 link. List of features, additional additions and changes, and there's a huge list here. Okay, it's a bit much for me to get into because I haven't played much of the original game, but I will say that romhacking.net has some incredible content. Absolutely incredible. I haven't been into this site in a while either. And it might be, I would be interested to check out, now that I'm doing the No Piracy Challenge, so I could only get ROM hacks for games that I have the physical cart to. I don't have the Final Fantasy 2 for the Super Nintendo, so I wouldn't be getting this one right out of the bat. I do have the original Final Fantasy on NES. And I have a couple of later games. Well, I don't expect they would show up here. So yeah, this is pretty cool. Taking a look at the screenshots right now. It doesn't do much for audio, but yeah, type of contribution, hacking, scripting, revision, hacking. Yeah, this is a lot of people worked on this. Sweet. Awesome. Hamrock, my man, always good to hear from you, brother. Thanks for checking in. Hope you're doing well. All right, we're tight on time, but let's jump ship over to YouTube and see what people have said there. Okay. Hemrock says on Monday Night Morrowind, it's good to see Theft Simulator 3000 make a return. Yeah, it is. Look, if you're playing Morrowind and you're not taking everything that it isn't glued down, you're not doing it right. That's my opinion. Then we have one from Death Adder. It says, what makes NES Pro Wrestling stand out? It has solid gameplay, cool characters, and was a part of the original NES collection back when I was a tender little guy. So it has nothing. So it's always going to rank pretty high up there for me. WCW Pro Wrestling on NES was kind of fun back in the day too, mostly because you could beat a guy with a wrench outside the ring. But I haven't had much fun with that one as an adult. There seemed to be a long stretch of WWF games where you'd spend 90% of the match doing this annoying grappling mechanic. Yeah, no thanks. I'll go stick my head inside of an oven instead. Yeah, see, I experienced that playing pro wrestling in NES. I mean, I'll still fire up a late 80s, early 90s wrestling game just for the magic of seeing pixelated Ultimate Warrior and Razor Ramon, but one match is usually all I can stomach. Yeah, it's about the same for me. The THQ N64 games and the SmackDown games on the PS1 and PS2 seemed to be the peak of wrestling games in my opinion. It's the same here. SmackDown 2 on the PS1 is the most I ever got into. I've also gathered that Mecha Menace doesn't really care for the Wrestlemans via thousands of times of him saying he doesn't on my podcast. So I wouldn't wish watching wrestling on my worst enemy over the past 20 years. But I almost feel bad for those who missed out on the golden era and the attitude era of wrestling. As much as Mecha spurgs out on the comic book movies, he'd probably have loved the Golden Era if he ever caught it as a kid. Opportunity to have worn Hulkamaniac underoos dashed. Yeah, it's good times. It's good times. I also like that. I wasn't much of a wrestling fan, but the Attitude Era turned my head in a big way. Mecha says, did you care about the pre-80s era guys, DA? Anyway, I had a problem with Hulk Hogan. I had no problem with Hulk Hogan in movies as a kid. I knew the guy did wrestling as like a side gig or something. I clearly remember kids in my tiny 20-student classroom bringing the figures and magazines to class. There wasn't a lot of choice of friends. Even so, I was interested in taking Turtles or maybe DuckTales. Talking Turtles or DuckTales, then talking Hogan and Doink. And pretty much hung to myself during those times. I later saw They Live as an adult and had nothing against the actors, though at the time I did not know they had careers as wrestlers. I even enjoyed the Cara Dune character from the Star Wars show, so yeah, I have no hate, but just have no desire to watch wrestling. Watch WrestleMans as actually wrestling. Heck, I know people that hate The Rock because he's in everything, but I think I've even enjoyed movies. I think I've enjoyed the movies I've seen with the guy. Yeah, that's fair enough. Sounds fair to me. Then they go back and forth, and this starts... Let's see. Death Adder's comment is huge. Oh, jeez. I don't know if I can read all this. Asked if I cared about the pre-80s guys, because I use the term Golden Era. The Golden Era is from 82 to 93, much like console generations. Every few years, there's a different era. Yeah, I'm with Death Adder on this one. Every sub niche has its own like terms it uses for era. So the Golden Era is not the same as what you would say like Golden Era comics or something like that. It's very different. Yeah, it's cool. I'm aware I'm the only Mondo Roundverse wrestling fan left since Kaiser returned to his home planet, and I have a few mutant friends I can still talk wrestling with. I like wrestling, bruh. How many? I actually paid for a Peacock TV subscription so I could watch WWE wrestling, because AAA Luchador wrestling left the United States, and I have no idea how to watch it anymore. I got really into AAA Luchador wrestling. I thought it was amazing. But can't watch it anymore. They used to have AAA's YouTube channel used to have every promotion you could just watch in full right there on YouTube, and that's not a thing anymore if you live in the United States. So I kind of like, with nowhere else to go, I got bought into Peacock because it was the cheapest thing at the time, and I watched everything they had available from WCW Saturday Night from 1993 up through like culminating with Halloween Havoc 1993. That was the one with Mick Foley versus Vader. And it turns out, I read about this later on, Mick Foley was trying to execute an insurance fraud scheme in that match. He wanted Vader to cripple him so that he could collect on insurance and get out of wrestling, which is why that match was so bananas. Yeah, it's good times. Good times. Okay, so what anything else good in here? How many times do I have to type the word wrestling out? I'm sorry you have to read all this. Critical failure. Wrestling. Banjo music starts playing in the background. Suburban Commando starring Hulk Hogan and They Live starring Roddy Piper are both dangerously based films. Don't worry, CF usually taps out after 2 messages in a thread, and then they talk more about stuff. Yeah, that's me, actually. I have to give you guys some room to Wow. My boys, so glad to hear from you both. So glad you're reeing at each other so hard. I really enjoyed that thread. I very much did. And we got Mecha Menace is the last one with his own comment. Game Boy, GBW is Game Boy Black and White. GBC is Game Boy Color. GBA is Game Boy Advance. I got slightly annoyed by the other Game Boys having 3-letter initialisms, so I created one. I've seen people using the DMG when referencing the original Black and White Game Boy specifically, but that doesn't line up with the others. Anyone fan of Adventure Time? That first track reminds me of some of the simple synth tracks of the first season. Yeah, I never watched Adventure Time. I know what you're talking about, but I never watched it just because I think it came after my cartoon days. As far as the DMG, I didn't start using the term DMG until I got into chiptunes. I never heard that term outside of the chiptune community, but they use it because the DMG is actually, like, the model number for the original Game Boy is DMG-001. And if you have one of those old Game Boys and flip it over, sure enough, somewhere on there, as long as you don't have the sticker rubbed off on the battery cover, it says DMG right on it, which is why they call it that. They use that term to specifically single out the brick Game Boy because it's the one with the clearest sound quality. You talk about autism. The chiptune guys have broken down Game Boy sound quality to the slightest detail in a way that, like, my ears can't even hear them. But the original Game Boy is supposed to be the best, and they commonly use what they call a Pro Sound mod on the original Game Boy. Basically, the idea is they disconnect the speaker, right, the 8-ohm speaker that's in the original Game Boy, and they instead route it to a stereo jack, so that you can it's more direct and a little bit more clear. And I think that's it. So when you see modified Game Boys that have been, like, specifically designed to be used with chiptunes, that's why they have that additional little, like, bright metal 3.5 millimeter jack, the audio jack, in the lower left-hand corner. It's the Pro Sound. It's designed to cut off the 8-ohm speaker and give you a direct, like, static-free sound that you can't get from any of the other models. So my fan theory is that the term DMG was adopted for modding purposes, but that's where it comes from. I don't know what it stands for. It's a serial number. But I'm glad you broke that down, because I legit didn't know what you were talking about when you said GBW, because wasn't there actually a Game Boy Black and White? Like a Game Boy Light or something that was Japan only? I don't know. There's a lot of models of the Game Boy. It was a very prolific and popular piece of hardware that had an insane amount of variations. Love me some OG Game Boy. Ladies and gentlemen, that's TCR for the week. Oh yeah. After all this time, I still dig this music. And what's funny is it's been a long time since I played Maniac Mansion and heard the actual Dave song from Maniac Mansion. Remember that for the duration of May, Metroid is our game, so play Metroid. If you're not subscribed on Patreon, you can gain access to Monday Night Morrowind as well as early access to the show, and I'm going to play some Metroid over on Patreon, and we're going to jam and hang out and have a good time. Yeah. Whatever it is you're up to this week, I hope it's going well. Keep going. Don't give up. And take care of yourselves. I'll see you next Monday.